You know, when we think of the great ancient civilizations, our minds almost always jump straight to Egypt, right? But what if I told you that for more than 1,000 years, the pharaohs had a powerful, sophisticated rival right on their southern border? Well, we're about to dive into the epic, untold story of that forgotten kingdom, a rival that shaped Egypt in ways we're only just starting to piece together. So, just think about that question for a second. It really flips the script on the history we've always been told. We see Egypt as this lone superpower on the Nile, but the truth is, the archaeology shows us something else entirely, a real contender, a powerful kingdom that rose up from the lands of Nubia.
And this is where that story begins. What you're looking at are the ruins of a massive royal tomb at a place called Kerma in modern-day Sudan. Now, this wasn't some backwater town. This was the capital of a civilization that, at its peak, was actually wealthier and more powerful than the pharaohs themselves.
So how in the world did this powerhouse just emerge from the sands? Well, to get it, you have to understand their totally unique identity, one that was forged in a region that the Egyptians both feared and deeply respected. Okay, so right from the beginning, the Egyptians had a name for this area, Ta Seti, which means the land of the bow. And that wasn't just a random name, it was a shout out to the one skill that defined these people. The archers from Nubia, they were legendary across the entire ancient world.
And wow, check this out. This discovery just brings that reputation to life. This is the tomb of an archer from Kerma, buried with his bow. And this wasn't just a tool for war, it was everything to them. It was a core part of who they were. They found kids, even small children, buried with bows. That tells you just how central that warrior identity was to their whole society.
But Kerma was so much more than just fierce warriors. I mean, they developed a civilization that was completely distinct from Egypt. They built these huge, solid mud brick temples they called defufas. There's nothing else like them. Their pottery? It's gorgeous, paper thin, with this classic black top. And their burials? Decorated with thousands of cattle skulls, they give us this little window into a really complex spiritual world.
And it all started somewhere, right? You can see their humble beginnings right here. This is an early, simple burial mound, a tumulus. It's not much to look at now, but inside this simple circle are the seeds of these incredible funerary traditions that would eventually define their kingdom's power.
And this just shows you the explosive growth they went through. I mean, in just a few centuries, they go from digging these small, simple pits to building colossal royal tombs. And these later tombs were just overflowing with treasures, surrounded by thousands of cattle skulls, and they even included human sacrifices. It was a brutal but very clear statement of the king's incredible wealth and absolute power.
So with all this power growing in the south, you just know a collision is coming. And it did. This growing strength set the stage for one of the great forgotten rivalries of the ancient world. For centuries, Kerma and Egypt were locked in what one historian called a virtual tug-of-war for who would control the Nile. This whole rivalry really played out in three big acts. First, you have Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Egypt is strong, so it pushes south, building these huge forts to control the gold trade and basically keep Kerma boxed in. But then, the tables turn. Egypt falls into chaos, and Kerma surges north, capturing those very same forts and becoming the top dog on the Nile. And finally, you get a reunited, vengeful Egypt during the New Kingdom, and they are determined to crush their southern rival once and for all.
And get this, during their golden age, Kerma was playing 4D chess. While the Egyptian pharaohs were trapped down in the city of Thebes, Kerma made a strategic alliance with these invaders called the Hyksos, who controlled northern Egypt. Together, they basically put the pharaohs in a vice, a pincer movement from the north and south that almost wiped them out completely.
So here's the bottom line, because the archaeology doesn't lie. This quote says it all. At this point in history, the tombs of the pharaohs in Thebes were, well, they were kind of pathetic. Small, not many goods. But the royal tombs back in Kerma? They were overflowing with wealth. For a while, the kings of Kerma were without a doubt richer and more powerful than the pharaohs.
But you can't keep a power like ancient Egypt down for long. Once the pharaohs kicked out the Hyksos and reunified their country, they turned their full, furious attention south. The climax of Kerma's story was about to begin.
The military machine of the Egyptian New Kingdom was just unstoppable. Legendary pharaohs like Thutmose I led enormous armies deep into Nubia. And Egyptian records, they don't hold back. They boast about the brutal defeat of the Kerman king in, quote, lurid detail. The city of Kerma was sacked, and its entire kingdom was swallowed by the Egyptian empire, now ruled by a viceroy and renamed Kush.
And this wasn't just about conquering land. Oh no. This was a cultural takeover. Egypt started a systematic process of Egyptianization. They built their own temples to their god Amun-Ra, right in the heart of what used to be Kerma's kingdom. They were imposing their culture, their religion, their entire way of life on the people they'd conquered.
So it really looked like it was game over, right? Egypt's great rival had been totally crushed. Its cities were occupied, its culture seemingly erased from history. But was a military defeat really the final word in this thousand-year saga?
Because this is where the story takes its most incredible, most surprising turn. You see, an empire can be destroyed, a city can be leveled to the ground, but a culture, an identity, that's a much, much harder thing to kill.
So, for centuries, Nubia was just a colony of Egypt. But the spirit of Kerma, its traditions, its people, it was all still there, bubbling just under the surface, waiting for the right moment. See, empires rise and they fall. And as Egypt's new kingdom eventually got weaker and started to collapse, a new Nubian power rose from the ashes of the old. This was the kingdom of Kush, and they were the direct heirs to Kerma's legacy. They remembered their past glory, and they certainly remembered their long rivalry with Egypt.
And then, the ultimate plot twist. Around 747 BCE, the Kushite kings, the descendants of Kerma, did the unthinkable. They marched north, they conquered a weak and fractured Egypt, and they established their own line of pharaohs, ruling as the 25th dynasty. And here is the jaw-dropping proof. In 2003, archaeologists digging right back at the site of Kerma found a hidden cache of magnificent, perfectly preserved statues. And who were they statues of? The Black Pharaohs, those very Kushite kings who ruled a massive empire stretching from the heart of Sudan all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. The heirs of the conquerors had become the conquerors. It's just incredible.
Which leaves us with this one fascinating question to chew on. Sure, Egypt won the battle. They destroyed the kingdom of Kerma. But centuries later, the heirs of Kerma were sitting on the throne of Egypt itself. So in this epic, thousand-year tug-of-war, you have to wonder, who really got the last laugh?